Welcome to another, State of the Union video here. Today we have Simon here and we're going to talk about the top 5 decks of Pioneer as of now. This is end of June, beginning of July. So really updated decks you can find in the description below. Everything Simon is talking about, every deck list you can find what's the best deck list you think of one of those 5 decks. And yeah, it's awesome to have you here. You just came out a second place from the Pro Tour. You qualified for Worlds. You're on top of the game.
Yeah,
it's so good to have you here. Get your insight because you also play a lot of Magic Online. And Pioneer is a format that is evolved mainly through Magic Online right now. A lot of the people prepare for the tournaments that are to come, the live tournaments. Top 5, but I have to ask you, if you have to exclude one because it just narrowly didn't make top 5, which decks would that be?
It's actually pretty close that this archetype made it. The control decks in Pioneer, I think, has the potential to be really good, but people have not agreed on a list yet. People playing blue-white control, there's like some recent success of blue-black, which might be a pretty good direction to take it in. And I've also, there's been these, the one I like the best is the Esper version, actually, combining both from Zach Allen and Raj Suleiman, who both top 8'd the NRG Series Pioneer Tournament a few weeks back. That deck has not been picked up on Magic Online for some reason, but I would be interested to see what would happen if people started playing it there.
So you're saying because the format is new and the top decks are kind of doing what they want, the control decks have to figure out how to combat that and then make like a good refined list because they need special answers for the problems. They have to react to something that's always a bit more difficult, as you know from other formats. So they're gonna need more time, but they're probably gonna slip into the slots once people know how to build them.
Yeah, I would expect that. And if you're a control mage, do not be afraid of bringing control right now. I think it definitely can be good. I would lean more towards the black-based version right now. But
so the blue-black one. Okay.
Or the Esper one.
So that could have been the top 5, but you said, okay, it's gonna need more time. It's a bit weird to put it together when you don't know what you're fighting against. So what is then the top 5 that is close to it?
Actual top 5, number 5 is Mono Red Burn.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a deck,
Every format has somewhat of mono red.
Exactly. Like, since Pioneer's inception, we've had the Eidolon of the Great Rebels Burn deck just be a thing.
Yeah.
It's been on the down low for a while. It got some new cards with Chandra Dress to Kill half a year ago, which works so well at enabling your spectacle spells, like Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics, because it makes a mana and deals a damage. It's perfect. Combined with the good cards that are already played in the deck, like the Prowess Creatures and Bone Crush Giant and some good burn spells. The deck really has a lot of oomph right now, and also the new Kumano Faces Kakasan is a great one-drop for the deck as well.
Saga, yes,
yeah.
As well. So would you say Mono Red benefits from the point that it just has a lot of very decent reach and burn spells and creatures, and everybody is not quite knowing what they're doing, so it's a good deck? Or is it actually there to stay because the cards like Burn and Modern are actually quite good?
I think the deck is definitely there to stay as a competitive deck. Not just because people generally know what they're doing. 2 cards got banned, but people still know about the pillars of the format. I think one really main part of why Burn is so high right now, I think, is the Ascension of the Spirits deck, which these flimsy spirits are not great against both the aggression and the instant speed burn spells of the red deck.
So you're saying that there are a lot of sideboard cards that you could take against Mono Red, but right now it's not very much used. Yeah, so people could be more prepared. Or are people actually well prepared, and beyond that, Mono Red is still fighting a good fight? I
don't think people are too prepared against the red deck right now, just a little bit. I mean, we started to see cards like Fiendslayer Paladin pop up. That's a very great card against the red deck. The Phoenix decks could sometimes have played Tablet of the Guilds, which is a way to gain life for them. And even the black control decks, for instance, have started to play Cemetery Trespasser in the sideboard, which is also both a threat and a way to gain life. Generally, when you play against the burn deck, it's very important that you don't just focus on removing their threats and gaining a little bit of life. You also need to pressure them, because at some point your life total will be low, and then they're the deck with inevitability that will win if the game goes long. So you just gotta kill them as well.
Number 4.
Number 4 right now is It Phoenix?
That used to be much higher.
It used to be much higher, but Expressive Iteration got banned. And then it plummeted, fell right down, back in the ashes, when people assumed, okay, well, without Iteration, the deck isn't playable. Of course that's not true, because the deck existed before Iteration as well, and it was still really good then.
Yes.
So it will still be good. And there has been a lot of innovations to the deck, like adding pieces of the puzzle to facilitate this delve and card advantage game plan, as well as your Phoenixes. And then also adding Temporal Trespass plus Galvanic Iteration combo. That's a way you can, for 5 mana, you get to take 2 extra turns and kind of like swing a game around that you might not look too great in.
And at this point, the 2 turns you're getting when you copy it makes you enable everything. Then you have a turn where you can use the graveyard and your opponent doesn't interact with, and the creatures can pressure some more, and then you get back into state, because Phoenix can fall behind a lot when your opponent does have good sideboard cards.
Yeah, or even if you don't, because the Phoenix deck spends a lot of its time casting cantrips, casting pieces of the puzzle, trying to delve cards, trying to discard Phoenixes. It's it's definitely not a good deck at getting on the board. It has some pretty good 1-mana removal spells, but if they don't line up right or aren't drawn, the Phoenix deck can fall behind. But it is also pretty good at catching up once it has the tools set in place, because of the 1-mana removal, because of the cheap Time Walk and the cheap delve spells that will be set up.
Sideboard, I assume, hate against the format is pretty strong. I mean, recently everything has been printed is kind of nice. Are people still saying I need those cards against Phoenix, or are they actually right now saying, okay, Phoenix is probably not that good without iteration, we don't need this, but it might show up more and more over time? It
did win the NRG series Pioneer tournament, and I think it was pretty good, pretty well positioned for that spot. But since the weeks have passed, people have started to put a bunch of unlicensed Hearse in their sideboard, which is the type of hate card you really want.
Just an overall great card.
Yeah. Not just Thomas Crypt is what you might want against other Phoenix versions that are more explosive, but this one is a version playing for the long game, and you really want to continually attack their graveyard so that you stop their delve spells as well as their Phoenixes.
You have it covered for the rest of the game and not just for one time.
Yeah, it's also really important that you don't just focus too much on the graveyard hate, because the deck does play Ledger Shredder, maybe Thing in the Eyes. They have probably bought in Crackling Drake, so you also need to be ready with stuff like Rending Volley or some other ways to answer these threats as well. But that's pretty awkward, because these spot removal spells play pretty poorly against Phoenix and the card advantage. So this is why the deck is still really strong, even though there is a lot of graveyard hate in the sideboards.
So you were talking about the delve spells. You have the Trespassing that gives you an extra turn, the Treasure Cruise who draws the cards. How many spells would you suggest is actually fine to play in this deck?
Usually people play 5 delve spells, so it's 3 Treasure Cruise, 2 Temple Trespass. Sometimes it's only 2 and 2, but that's about the range. 4 to 5 is what people usually play.
Okay, because after that, it gets too taxing. You would draw the cards, you don't have the graveyards, because Treasure Cruise is a hell of a card. Why wouldn't you play 4 of those if you could actually get them going?
They used to play 4, but then they figured out, oh wait, it's much better to copy a Time Walk than an Ancestral Recall.
Yeah. So. Wow, must be nice to have both in your deck.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So we have number 5 Burn, number 4 Blue-Red Phoenix, number 3.
Number 3 right now is Red-Black Midrange. From the outside looking in, it looks like kind of a wonky deck. It's just a bunch of 3-drops, doesn't really have any synergies. The cards don't look particularly good, but what is so good about these cards? These 3-drops, Graveyard Trespasser, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Bone Crusher Giant. They're just so good because of their flexibility.
Really stable.
They are able to both play defense and offense at the same time and are hard to interact with. Graveyard Trespasser, it's you can't really kill it without having to discard a card. And then it also hits the graveyard, it also gains you life. It can attack really well, especially once it's flipped. And the same thing with Fable, does a bunch of things at the same time. Bone Crusher Giant 2 can be a 2-drop and your 3-drop at once. And that package, plus the 2-drop of Bloodtide Harvester, which is also a removal spell that is a threat, and Chandra, which is a removal spell that is a threat. The entire deck is just this super flexible pile, topped off by Thoughtseize, the arguably most flexible card there is.
Yeah. If you're gonna end up in Pioneer, right, and you're buying a deck, or you want to play for a longer period of time, Red-Black Midrange is the best deck to choose if you don't want the hassle of switching decks and stuff, because that core is gonna stay there basically forever.
Yeah, I think the Red-Black deck, we feel pretty safe to say that it's going to be there for in top 5 decks for the next 6 months. I would expect. It is good enough and flexible enough to stay there. You can always switch out cards if you need in the meta changes, but it's not good enough that something will get banned.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it is because that's also you have to it's a balance.
I'm lucky I play my deck, so it's not good enough to get banned.
But it's still definitely a really solid deck. If you're an enjoyer of the Jund style in Modern or these mid-range decks, that are just really solid. You make sure that you get to play reasonable games of Magic every time. The Red-Black deck is definitely for you. It is quite solid.
Okay, and then you also have the flexibility to switch out some of the good 3-drops when the metagame changes against some other 3-drops, and just adjust minimally and not like changing the deck, but actually just putting some other sideboard cards. I assume also the sideboard cards of the deck are outstanding.
Yeah, you have really good sideboard options, and it's hard to sideboard against, right? Because it's not a linear strategy.
Yeah.
Like the best thing you can do is try to minimize your reliance on combos and individually bad cards, because they're gonna get like swept away from you, like the payoff cards. So you need all your cards to be like as solid and provide card advantage and board presence as much as possible in once. So stuff like Planeswalkers, Showdown of the Skulls if you have a deck that can support that. In the red-black decks, I actually started to play Invoke Despair, the black Invoke spell, as a mirror tech, because it deals with both a creature, enchantment, and a Planeswalker at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's flexible, so if they don't have some of them, you still draw a card.
Yeah. Okay. So they're actually metagaming against itself, like going a little bit over the top.
Exactly. It's important to think about the mirror matches when you're building your decks in this top 5.
Cool. Now we have number 2.
Alright, number 2. It's gonna get a little bit scary here. Are you ready?
Okay.
Mono blue spirits.
Wait, that wasn't anywhere like recently, right?
It was not. No, that deck has really just like shot up the standings. Their spirits deck have been like on and off in Modern for a while. It's been like blue-white spirits.
In Modern,
in Pioneer too. But the thing you get to do here with these new builds is that you just strip away all that extra chaff of like playing extra colors, expensive cards. You just like Curious Obsession, protected by good counterspells. You got like Geistlight Snare, which is a relatively new card from Kamigawa. That is like, when you have a Curious Obsession on a spirit, that's a 1-mana mana leak. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
Because you're only one color, you get to play a fully snow mana base. So you can have Faceless Haven, which is a spirit, and Ascended Spirit, which is also a spirit.
Okay, so you kind of fill up your deck with a great 1-drop and also a great late game card, because then you can sink all the mana into it.
The Ascended Spirit provides something super necessary for the spirits deck, because the spirits themselves are kind of flimsy. They die easily, they don't block well, and so on, and they're not necessarily great top decks in the late game. But Ascendant Spirit are all these things. Like, it can be like really big, hard to kill, good to block with, a very threatening attacker. I think that's really like what makes this deck just have enough like different dimensions to play on to be like strong. The main reason that it's shot up so much recently is that it is great against the top deck, Mono Green Devotion. It is surprising because it does not look like it. It looks like the starter deck that's like, okay, well, it's just anti-mono green, but it has way too many results now in the online tournaments to be just a fluke and just like a one-trick pony. It's
not bound to mono green. It actually could be just figured as a stable version.
I think it actually is a really strong deck. I wouldn't be too surprised if like in some months it will have fallen out of the top 5 again if the meta changes, but I think as long as green is one of the top dogs and you have like, again, these control decks that are coming up from like the rear end and then getting figured out, Spirits is pretty good at control.
They always has does it have a lot of flash cards, a lot of...
Yeah, it's super tricky, like Rattle Chains, and you got like maybe Brazen Borrower. You can also like tune the deck a little bit, even though it's just a mono blue deck. Like you can decide if you want like Brazen Borrowers or Fading Hopes or Slip Out the Back, the new face out card to protect your creatures.
So even though you play one color, the choices for the main deck are still quite relevant, and also for the sideboard.
Yeah, you have a lot of good sideboard, like Mystical Dispute, you got Hearse, of course, in that deck.
Like the mono blue sideboard cards are actually really good. I remember Mystical Dispute, Aethergast, and Hearse. Like you actually don't have a shortage of extra good sideboard cards, which usually happens with those one color decks.
Exactly. You also have a great removal spell in Witness Protection, the new card.
Witness Protection?
Yeah, it's the 1-mana card that turns a creature into...
That makes the 1/1s.
Yeah, it turns it into like a
businessman. Like
exactly.
Unsuspicious businessman.
Unsuspicious businessman, exactly.
And that is good.
It is great against mono green. You turn their Llanowar Elves or their Cavalier of Thorns into just like irrelevant creatures. 1/1 just don't matter.
Yeah, okay, I see that. It's not the best remove spell of choice, but it's decent enough that it's actually a good sideboard card. I can see that. So why, or from the like reverse engineering, we say mono blue is good against green. Green is #1. Is green #1 by a wide margin? Is it close? Are the top 5 actually close?
Yeah, so I think like we have the #1, which is like I think far and away the best deck. Not as in like you're making a huge mistake by not playing it, but pretty solidly ahead of the rest. Then you have like the shuffle in like the 2 or the 3 spots where like these 3 decks are like fighting over like depending on the metagame which cards are exactly good. And then you had like whatever comes in at the rear end. Is it mono red? Is it the control decks? Maybe like people will figure out a good Grease Fang build or something like that. The Nip Miss It decks too. Like there's a lot of decks that are roaming around at the bottom which like can peak into top 5.
So tell us, #1 mono green, what does it do? Why is it #1?
Yeah, mono green Devotion is just such a blast. Like this deck, it's been around for quite a while. We've had recently the new innovation of using Storm the Festival in this build, and people have just been like innovating on this deck kind of in the shadows. It's never been like this true breakout deck because stuff like Vinoda was in the format that was very good against it.
Yeah.
But now with the banning, didn't touch any cards of the green deck, but removed Iteration and Vinoda from the format. Now, all these innovations that people have had on this deck are like coming into light. It's no longer just like this, explosive board presence deck. It is a combo deck that kills you on turn 4.
So it's a combo deck that is very good, like the combos very quickly. But also, as I've experienced myself against Canister, you just get beaten down by 4/4s on turn 3 or 2.
Yeah, exactly. It is quite incredible. The biggest like new innovation here is the addition of the Chain Veil, a card from M15, the first set in Pioneer. It's like a 4-mana artifact. You play 4 mana to tap it to. For the rest of the turn, all your Planeswalkers can activate an extra time. Both the ones in play and the ones you play later. Which is really important when you have this loop.
Okay, wait. Tell us how the loop actually works. Like once you're in a situation, what do you need to do it?
It used to be the old combo before Chain Veil. You would have a Karn and a Kyora in play, a Karn and Kyora in graveyard, and Nykthos at 14 Devotion. Okay, it sounds like a huge setup, right? Which definitely, it does happen with this deck because of Storm the Festival being so great at setting it up.
The longer the game goes, the more the
so once you have your, all this setup, with Karn you can go get Pestilent Cauldron, which is a random black card, but the backside is a 5 mana, both players gain 4 life, return 2 permanent from your graveyard to your hand.
And you can get the backside, play the backside because you get the front side, which
exactly,
is an
and then it exiles itself.
Yeah.
And once it's in exile, Karn can get it.
Because then it's the artifact from the front side again.
Exactly. Okay. So you get back your Planeswalkers from the graveyard, and then Kyora makes mana because you have your Nykthos. Karn can get back the thing, and that way you can generate infinite mana. If you have 15 Devotion, that's infinite mana, and you can gain infinite life. And at some point, just kill them with the front side, which mills them equal to the number of life you've gained.
So that was the problematic or old combo.
That is the old combo. It's still part of the new combo, but what the Chain Veil does is that it greatly reduces the amount of devotion you need. Because before you needed 14, 15, now you need 8.
Okay.
Which is a lot less. Yeah, because once your Kyora can activate twice in a turn, well, all of a sudden it actually makes quite a lot of mana. And your Kyoras can untap the Chain Veil to activate it again. So now the next Kyora can activate 3 times.
Because that counts backwards. Okay,
and also, you don't need 2 Karns anymore because of the Chain Veil. Because the Karn can now just go minus, minus, plus, minus, and then go into the graveyard. You could get it back.
Yeah.
Because it can activate so many times in a turn.
The problem was it couldn't kill itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so you would need 2. But now you don't anymore. You still need 2 Kyoras.
So that sounds to me like this is very recent. You say a few weeks.
A few weeks ago, innovated by Nathan Stewart, I believe.
There's still a lot more to this number 1 deck to explore.
There definitely is, because it's not just a combo deck. It is, as you said, also a beatdown deck. Yeah. You can just play a 4/4 Old Growth Troll on turn 2. You can be a Karn Prison deck. You can be this board presence-based mid-range deck that plays a bunch of Cavaliers. There's a lot of stuff going on with this deck. It is very multi-dimensional for being a mono-colored Rams deck, essentially. I think that what makes people have so much trouble with it, even though your entire sideboard is just artifacts for Karn, you don't really have to worry about a sideboard plan. Yeah. You just present your main deck again, and people just can't do anything about it, regardless.
Yeah. Okay, crazy. So number 5, Mono Red Burn. Number 4. Arclight Phoenix.
Yes.
Number 3, Red Black Midrange. Number 2, Mono Blue Spirits. Number 1, Mono Green Devotion.
Yes.
All of those completely playable in Pioneer.
I would say so, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. But we do have kind of a tradition.
A tradition?
Right? Yeah, tradition. It comes from the podcast Midweek's Metagames. The link is somewhere on the channel. You have a life and death question, right? You're playing the tournament tomorrow. Actually, not tomorrow, today.
Today? Just in a few hours? Am I late? No. Oh no.
Yeah, you already got a game loss for round 1.
It's that's safe.
Tough.
That's safe.
It's really tough. Okay. And you have to go and choose one deck that makes your survival hit rate the highest, right?
Yes.
What you gonna play?
I'm gonna play mono green for sure. And I think I would sneak a couple Skylashers in my sideboard to answer the mono blue players.
You say number 1 actually means number 1, you're gonna play
Yes,
the best.
it's also just nice style of deck. I mean, I love mono green. That's the deck I played the most in Pioneer before this version, and I will continue to play this version as well.
Thank you very much for being here, for giving us this very up-to-date Pioneer overview. We are trying to do this in a regular base because Pioneer especially changes so much quickly. You subscribing, clicking, commenting, all of this helps to grow the channel. Thank you for watching. Bye.